Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back. Today we're going to make you think a little bit deeper about your life, about your history, about your family, how they influenced you potentially without you even knowing it. We're going to dig into ancestry and things that are generational. I don't want to scare anybody with that T word, so I'm going to leave that word out until we get to it. But it's funny that we're talking about this. Susie, you suggested it, and it's been on my radar, and I started digging into my ancestry. So we're going to dig into it today. I think we're going to learn a lot. She is an amazing psychotherapist, helps people of all ages, all different situations, whether it's relationships, figuring out life, figuring out your ancestry, why you do what you do. Susie Engel is back with us. How you doing today?
I'm fine, Steve. How are you?
Real good, real good. This whole
That's
ancestry thing, it's sort of for me started with ancestry.com, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Last summer. And
Oh,
I could go into a story. I want to get your read on it before we go anywhere.
okay.
Is this something new for you, checking into your ancestry? Has it been fairly in the last couple of years on your mind? Or if this is always something even since you were a kid?
Yeah, I think when I was a child growing up, the weekends, and I know my grandmother and great aunt worked for a department store, and they had Thursdays off. So I think all of my life I had extended family around. We didn't live with extended family.
Mm.
We had our nuclear family in our home, but always extended family, always other aunts and uncles and cousins or other cousins of my grandmother's generation. So for me, it's not new. For me, I always felt, and maybe again, we talk a lot about how we're shaped and molded and how we adapt to things. But I think part of my adaptation was my true love for my extended family and my almost like a motivation
Hmm.
to do well and show up. And I always wondered, like this curiosity, I wonder what life was like for them when they were my age, 5 years old, 7 years old, 13 years old. And then as they got older, we heard the stories of like how my grandparents met or, these types of what they did for the movies every weekend or dances, you know. But I don't think that that's new for me. Although one of my brothers started investigating on ancestry.com, or whatever we
Hmm.
call it.
Whatever, 23andMe, there's so
Ancestry.com.
many out there. And for those that are afraid to provide their DNA, I get it.
Yes.
I don't judge anyone. I'm not worried about it. Life is short. And I found out through ancestry.com that I have a half sister, never knew about.
Wow. Yeah.
And I met her last summer.
Oh, wow. So that's serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not serious. Everything is serious, but it's big. So how was that?
Um, Wonderful, a little bit awkward. We share the same father. I don't know if my father even knew that my half sister existed. He passed away a few years after she was born. And we don't have all the pieces, but when we put what we have together, it all kind of fits and makes sense. Her mother never really wanted to talk about anything about my half sister's father. And her mother passed away about 12 years ago, and she just couldn't ask any questions. So it was a slow roll in terms of us meeting on ancestry.com. The messaging wasn't that immediate, but eventually
No,
we
I
started
understand.
piecing it together. And her mother worked at a restaurant not far from where my father lived and on his way home from work. And we think that's where it happened. And
Oh,
she is about 15 years younger than me.
hmm.
But here's don't even have to do the deeper testing. I have a twin sister. And if you look at my nose, my sister's nose, and my half sister's nose, you could tell we're related. You could just tell. You could tell. But that was the beginning. And I don't have close connection with my father's side. He passed when I was very young, probably in my low 20s.
Yes.
My parents
Yeah.
got divorced when I was very young. So I didn't have a connection to that family. But I want to share this, and it validates a lot of what you're saying. I always had this affinity for the 1800s.
Oh,
I don't know what it is. I would look at pictures all the time. And right around the mid 1800s, photography existed. So it's real pictures,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
just drawings, paintings. And I would be fascinated, still am, looking at the clothes. Like, how do they do that? Yeah, they have machines. And how do they do that? I could, all day long, black and white pictures. I could stare at it. I met a genealogist, and she says, you know what? Give me what you got. Let me take a look. This is in the past year. So
Yes.
she looked into the very basic info I had and identified, and Ancestry.com backs it up. I'm Lithuanian. I never even knew I was. And my father's father and grandfather came from Lithuania and were tailors.
Oh, wow, it's in your DNA. And then you're looking at clothing and photos. Like, this is not made up. Like, this is a true experience.
I didn't tell this woman any of this info. She just threw it to me, and I'm like, interesting. And I have a strong work ethic. And she said that they, father's father and on, worked their butts off at their craft to make enough money to bring their family to United States, New York City. She was even able to figure out what street he lived on
Yeah, that's
with
fantastic. Did you
like
see
no
it?
info. I haven't gone there, haven't gotten that far yet.
Oh,
This is all in, in the last year, so I haven't had time.
oh,
But
yeah.
the
Oh, wow.
what can be uncovered, like you said, I
Yeah.
believe it's in my DNA. Or
Oh, no. Yes. I mean, just the fascination, like, how did they construct that? How did they sew that? How did they put that interest? Yeah. And the work ethic.
yeah,
And also, when you hear these stories, it only, like, for me, I only want to, I know it's fulfilling for us in our lives to do good work and to do fulfilling work, but I also feel like in a healthy sense, an obligation.
mm,
Because what do you think it took for your grandparents to have that work ethic in Lithuania and take this boat? You probably know what boat they were on to America
yeah,
and not even know with the dream or the belief or the hope and the courage and
yeah.
bravery. Like, for me, when I think of things like that without even knowing the facts of my lineage or knowing the facts of my lineage, I just feel like that gives me motivation. Like, I will not complain about piddly things.
Yes, 100%. And what you
Yeah.
said, the obligation, you feel you have an obligation. I love that word because, and I wonder how you feel about this. We're here for a reason. There is a purpose for us to be here. We were given skills and talents to help others. Learn
Yeah.
and teach. Learn and teach. And if you feel like you're not doing that, then maybe you haven't figured out what you should be doing, i.e., your purpose. And
Mhm.
I, as a tailor, I guess my relatives, that was their purpose. Me,
That's
doing
so
podcasts,
good.
spreading awareness about things. My
Oh,
purpose, your
beautiful.
purpose, is to help us understand all of this stuff, and help people move their lives forward. But we have an obligation.
Yeah, it's just so moving. When I was in graduate school, I had a Japanese professor, and she told the story and she was teaching how to work with young children clinically.
Mm,
So she was teaching us that, but every class, the warm up, kind of like the beginning of sessions, it's like the warm up, like, how are things going? Oh, you're not going to believe it. And then we get down to the work.
Sure.
But one of the days she said that her father had, her grandfather in Japan had died, and she had gone back to Japan. She was married here in America and has a son who was born first generation American. Um, Japanese American, and she went home to help her family after her grandfather had died. And her son happened to be a young teenager, happened to be a beautiful poet.
Hmm.
And so goes home and she's telling us this warm-up story. She goes home and helps unpack her grandparents' home. And up in the attic are her grandfather, a box of handwritten poetry
Ooh.
that her grandfather had written. And it reminds me of what we're talking about. You know, I happen to have a lot of interests in my life, and I feel very liberated to explore all these interests. I don't know all like how it goes back to my lineage, but she was able to say, no wonder my son has this
Ah.
talent, you
Hmm.
know. And then so it just reminds me of that story,
Uh,
you know.
yes, and you said it, and when you said it before, it really crystallized in my mind when you said, but it's in your DNA. It's in your DNA. I wonder, but honestly, Susie, when you said it, it was like I felt it. Like, yeah, yeah. There's a reason. It's just not random. And do you find as you get older that even looking at that poetry done by somebody, relative or not, from decades or a century ago, you want to read it and try to get into their head and what they were thinking and what they were feeling and what life was like.
Yeah, and actually they're expressing it too.
Right. Mm.
I mean, you can. And I just had a client who um wrote a song, and she hadn't written a song. She's an artist. I mean, she actually works for um she has a full-time job. But her job is just kind of like, okay, I go 9 to 5, da 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 da. But she's an artist. She writes beautifully.
Mm.
She writes music and sings. She paints. She draws. So she wrote a song and sent it to me last night after I had gone to bed. So this morning at some point, I listened to it, and it brought up tears. So that, and what's in her DNA?
We don't
Excuse
we don't know, but
me.
it sounds like her purpose is to be creative
Ex
and inspire
yes.
others because
And
it
express.
express,
Yeah.
but it touched you. What she did touched you. Like you said, her 9 to 5, yeah, go to work, show up, get done, get a paycheck, got to support myself, family, and all of that. But doesn't sound like it's her purpose. But that, what you just said, and
Yes.
she made a mark on you with that song.
And I am pretty sure. So tears came, and then I knew we had to meet. I said, "Oh my gosh, if my face is swollen from crying."
Yeah.
I'm just joking a little
No, but
bit to
still.
get light. But I I think if I played that song, and I think I will, because I have a children's group, and all the children have experienced hardship.
Hmm.
And I just think if I teach the children to come to calm, regulate their bodies, and then bring this song, I think they're all going to release something and share it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I did some podcasts with somebody who does what you do in that area, the wheelhouse, and they were in the Ukraine. And they, after the war, and this is only I'm
Started
saying after, but it's still ongoing, but
ongoing. Mm,
the skirmish. But this was about 4 months
excuse me.
ago, and she gravitated to music therapy. Apparently, she had a degree and wasn't using it. And that's how she helps those children heal through music.
I love that. That's the portal.
Mm.
That's beautiful. It makes me so, it almost gives me chills. I mean, that's amazing.
It's
Beautiful,
so
beautiful.
universal, and it doesn't even have to be the words. It could be
Oh,
just,
no.
the music, the sounds, and all of that. You ever do this? You ever hear a song and you get stuck on it, and
Oh, yeah.
you try to figure out why it's resonating with you. You read the lyrics over and over again. Sometimes you know what it means. Sometimes the artist hasn't revealed it. You have to interpret it in your own way. But why are you playing it over and over again? Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Oh, it happens to me all the time. And I remember when I was younger in the car, my mother was driving my brother, one of my brothers. I have three brothers, one of my brothers and me to like piano lessons or something. And I couldn't stop singing this song. I'm still like that. Like I just get hooked on something and I can't get the song out of my mind and I like it. But the thing is, sometimes it's not even necessarily the lyrics. Sometimes it really is the music.
Yeah.
And that is and just to get clinical a little bit today, which we already have touched upon little spots. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. We could go in so many directions. But what they've discovered in so much research recently is we don't have to learn a handful of emotions. And so they can elicit. And when I heard this song this morning that the client had written, I was just so moved. And I started thinking about this. But really, like you could video an infant
Mm.
and play a song that brings up sorrow or sadness, just to be simple, sadness. The infant will start expressing
Wow.
sadness, just listening to the music, right? So, yeah, I mean, music is really transformative. I mean, transporting is just amazing. But the whole thing about we're born, like they've done all sorts of research with people in this way, but with like lab rats or mice, and they can ping and elicit certain emotions that nobody has to learn. And then it isn't until life starts happening that we develop like, ooh, I shouldn't feel this way. That's like too bad. Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, the rat, the infant, whatever, doesn't know what that is. Doesn't know that sorrow, that song about sorrow, is sorrow. It's just an emotion. They don't even
And
know.
it's healthy to not have to put a thought to it.
Hmm.
It's healthy to just say, I'm just feeling it.
It's
It's
kind of the same way
before the judgment. Yeah, go
people
ahead.
who have hearing challenges can't hear music, but they can feel it. And music can be played. They feel the beats, they feel the energy, and they start moving. And it's coming from within. It's who they
Absolutely.
are. And also, I also wonder, a little bit deeper here, but the energy that's coming out of the song or piece of music, what the artist put into it, we're picking up on it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
That's amazing and true. I mean, the energy that any of us put into anything, you feel it. If I'm going to be like an angry, like low energy, low mood person, do you think clients are going to come? And I don't have to force this. This is just like naturally, like I'm just the way I am. I'm not
Sure.
like scripting anything. But it's true. So if somebody's writing a song or cooking something or creating a piece of art, the
Hmm.
energy put into it
Yeah.
is what we get.
Like when
It's
people
so
say,
true.
when grandma cooks, man, I don't know, she puts love into it. It's just, it always tastes so much better when grandma cooks. I, I don't think it's just her heritage, her cooking. I think and the love that's putting in is her energy. The highest vibration is love. So she's putting
Absolutely.
something into it, and then we're picking up on it, eating it, feeling it, understanding it. And to your point, you could be miserable, nasty, but when a client comes in, how are you? Yeah, and
No, I can't do
fake it.
that.
No, but if you did, if you
Oh,
did,
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
fake that smile, some may, on the surface think that you're in a great mood, but they would eventually pick up on what's coming out of you in
Because
terms of the
it's not
energy.
sincere.
Yeah.
It's not, or, you know, organic. It's just not the
Not
truth.
genuine.
No, not genuine. Right.
Not
That's the word.
authentic. And by the way, I was just being hypothetical. You're not that. You're not even close to
Yeah,
that.
no, I know. I was like, I can't do it anyway because
Yeah.
like people sometimes tell me like, "Oh, you're so funny. You should be a comedian." And I was like, I don't try to be funny, but I know that I am very funny sometimes, but I really don't try. If I got on a stage to try to be funny, I would never be able to do that. Like that
Well,
was just not organic,
well,
right?
you know what? I've interviewed many comedians, and I have to tell you, the majority, and I'm talking like 90% of them in the interview, they're just not funny. They're not
Yeah,
funny. It's an act. They have to do an act. They have to be the
I
reverse of what
would
you're
never.
talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. I would never be able to. But I am a very funny, like people laugh, like strangers laugh. And it's like, seriously, like I'm not trying.
Well, I have to tell you, Susie, you are very funny, and I believe half of it is funny, and then the other half is the energy. They're picking up on your energy. It's a very positive, uplifting. It's a vibe. It's a feel good.
Yeah.
Before we run out of time, I do want to, and this is not a negative, but it's validation and understanding. The T word. Now, we've talked about trauma before, and there's
Mhm.
all different types of trauma. We all have dealt with it. It pilots our life. A lot of it, as we've discussed, starts in our childhood. But generational trauma, is it possible that something happened 2 generations back? Grandpa or grandpa's grandfather, great, whatever, had something going on, um, and it can get passed on generationally, and we deal with the trauma. Very possible.
Yes. And let's just keep it at a very simplistic
Sure.
framework or scaffolding. Look, if my um grandparents were so loving and sociable and healthy,
Mm,
having gone through everything that their parents had gone through and whatever, then we know that either they have a certain resilience
mm,
or that there was some recovery from the difficulties they had gone through. So the positives, so let's look at it as the positives of the intergenerational stuff that I might have been a receptor of also altered their DNA. So even though they went through immigration or trauma in their home countries, they still recovered enough to to change their DNA. Now, if I had grandparents who survived the Holocaust, and there's a ton of mega huge research about this, and 3 generations later, there may be a thread of how their DNA was altered
mm.
because of the traumas they experienced in the Holocaust, and then that's passed down to the generations. And how come we're seeing some resemblances of, um, some symptoms of trauma
Wow.
or reactivity or discord in the family because there was such a disruption from their home
And
experience.
and is it very possible that what they the trauma that they dealt with, whatever it may be, and it can vary. It might not
Yes,
even be
it
what
doesn't
you.
have to be the Holocaust.
Right, right. That generations later, we could be dealing with that ourselves. It could be in our DNA.
Yeah, and I think that this is a nice conversation for us to have maybe in a future podcast, maybe not next week, but soon, or maybe next week, because it is very true. So, like good experiences and resilience and joyful experiences and processing experiences change our DNA. That's why people come to therapy and their families develop healthfully. as well as the traumatic, and then it becomes an intergenerational. And there's a reason why people say, well, in my family history, there's a predisposition for anxiety. There's a predisposition for addiction. It's not just because it's in our genes, it's because it's developed in our genes, because our DNA was altered.
Wow. And I see it many times. I could name numerous people in my circle who, you say anxiety. Almost everybody in their family has anxiety. I'm not judging. It is what they are. And they freely admit it. Oh, well, yeah, I have anxiety. So does my sister. So does my brother. My mom rarely has it, on and on and on. But it goes to show that it follows along, gets into the cellular level. And it's how you deal with it. Oh, we're out of
time. Oh boy. Again.
Happens all the time. Wow. So interesting. And very different what we talked about today. Very different.
I like it.
Really cool.
I hope the audience enjoyed it.
I'm going to say this. I can guarantee that it made you think. It made you think about you, your history, how you got here, how your family, acted. And by the way, I'm not selling any kind of, DNA test or anything like that. Just saying, there's tons of them. Sponsored. Not at all. But what it provided for me, I would have never known that I have a half sister. It was like, and it's cool. Gosh. And she lives in another state, maybe a 2-hour plane ride away, not even that far. And nice. Just interesting and wonderful, to learn about our history. You provide this and so much more in terms of us helping us figure us out. And you can do this virtually anywhere for anyone. How do we find you, Susie?
And in person. Yeah. I'm at my website. I mean, it's the easiest way. Just type my name correctly. It's Susan Engel -LCSW.com. And Engel is ENGEL. So
yeah, reach out, have a conversation. Help is there, or just insight like we did today to
broaden ourselves.
Figure it out.
That's
figure
all.
it out. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.
All right, be well. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.